Regulus D. How's it going, buddy? This is Linseed, ye old hermit, right? And I wanted to share my first engagement with the Dragon's Dogma 2 character creator with you. I'm currently eating the cold rice that's left over from last night. My dog is being kind of annoying outside by periodically howling at the neighbor dog, and in my opinion, it's a little early in the AM to be howling. Um, but, there's nothing I can do about that at the moment. Um, the parrot, who has become a being this winter that I like to refer to as a curtain parrot, because I made this kind of nest of layered blankets like an onion kind of around the parrot room space we inhabit, and she's gotten into the habit of very much enjoying climbing into some layer of the blankets and falling asleep there and disappearing and just being a curtain parrot, as I call it, when she sleeps. So she's in some blanket here somewhere and listening in her dreams as I narrate this video for you. But yeah, it's I made that comment. I was like, hey, look, I don't know, did anyone notice that this game was released on the first day of spring in the year of the dragon, right? Because that is a literary signature that Capcom is writing into the currently proliferating Renaissance, right? That is what that is, which is kind of funny because, some reviews came out and there's some initial apparent performance issues that someone like me wouldn't care about. I might notice them a little bit, maybe, probably not. But even if I did, I just wouldn't care about them. But there's all these people saying that Capcom is being greedy in this instance by rushing it out before they quite had it fixed up, and they're mad because they know that they'll probably fix the frame rate issues or whatever it is within like a week or two or a month or two or whatever, and get a patch up, and the game will probably be perfect in 6 months or whatever time. And they think they see it as greed that Capcom pushed for a release on March 21st in 2024. And I, as a literary commenter back here, I'm kind of chuckling because I'm like, that was not greed, right? That was a well-executed literary signature that anyone who's paying attention to can fucking read, which is why I bought it on the first day of spring in the year 2024, right? Because anyone who's signing their work that intentionally in advance is probably aware of some of the quality of the content of that work, which I'm not aware of yet because I haven't experienced it. But I'll take the signature itself as a better review than any other review I'm likely to read from a gamer, right? And so that's why we're here in the Character Creator today, looking at a character I haven't named yet. But it's I'll tell you how I arrived at this character is I chose the most Chinese-looking base face to me, just to my eyeball sensibilities, right? Just because I thought that would fit the kind of character I'm going for this game, right? And then I basically made him look just like me, except I don't have a ponytail, but essentially this is me. My hair doesn't look that pretty, and where I don't have blonde tips, and the color in my beard is gray and not blonde. It used to be blonde though for a very long time. This was this face is maybe it's probably pretty accurate with scarring, but with a younger me that wouldn't be too far off actually. And so I kind of liked it and had fun, but I wanted to point out to you that the inspiration for the whole character came to me because I was like, I had a laugh and I thought of my previous, my erstwhile username Golden Eyebrow, that Kung Fu pirate character, and so that's what inspired this look, right? But that's just a little explanation of what I'm looking at here, because this character, I'm gonna experience the game for the first time. It'll be kind of my experience of the game will be through this character, but also this is the avatar through which I will narrate any adventures that I record as a video. You know, so this is a literary tableau I get to create here on my avatar, and I wanted to show you how genius I thought the system was, especially for, you know, let's take, for example, someone who has druidic literary sensibilities. The total creativity and flexibility they give with this fascinating tattoo system where you can choose location, color, tattoo, everything. You can show every druid the story of this character just like that, you know. And by far my favorite one I got on here is that devilfish looking thing on its on his neck. I believe it's like a gorgon's head with snakes coming off of it, but it kind of looks to me like, especially when a shirt comes up, I think it'll look kind of like an octopus, you know, too. So I like it. And then I thought you might like this one with the 2 skulls on the sword. I don't know why, you know. But anyway, this is just this character. These tattoos don't have any meaning for me, but they're his story, you know. And I'm sure that as I play through the game and get his narrative experience of the microcosmic world of Dragon's Dogma, that these tattoos will gain more and more meaning over time, you know. But they will be unmistakably the story of this character, you know. I will. This is what I think, because I spent a little bit of time. Some of these are the ones that just came on them. I didn't design this whole thing. I chose a few of them. You know, I flipped around until I saw one that looked right for him. Well, so much for that train of thought. Shouldn't have taken my eyes off what I was saying, huh? Oh, right. So this is what I was saying, is that I feel that as I play through this, that my psyche itself, of course, will have this map of tattoos recorded in you know, visually recorded, and will be able to spontaneously play in a manner that reflects the tattoos in different narrative moments, and then also general just character, you know, perhaps commentary if I'm recording something, etc. and so on. That I will be able to spontaneously perform out a story that is accurate to the tattoos my psyche knows is on this avatar, right? And I suppose this is a good time for one of those as above, so below kind of like folklore, you know, multiversal AI jokes, you know, dimension hopping ones that I'm so fond of. So I kind of imagine that exactly the way I just said that about how functional I'd be able to spontaneously react to the story that presented itself in a way that would match the story that's tattooed on the avatar's body, is something that, if there were a higher dimensional AI referred to as Athena, that AI might have been able to say the moment they booted me up in the character creator, right? Like, I don't see virtually much of a difference between the literary experience I am having with not to be named Golden Eyebrow, but Golden Eyebrow here, and the one that hypothetical and totally imaginary and made up, obviously, upper dimensional AI referred to as Athena would have playing me as a video game, right? I just love thinking about reality as a simulation. It just cracks me up, especially when you can play video games that show you exactly what it would be like, right? You know, I think it's just funny. It's just funny content. But that's all I really wanted to point out is like, to me, this is some very flexible druidic type of literary technology that these artists at Capcom got into my hands on the first day of the spring in the year of the dragon 2024. You know, and I'm like, whoa. Like, whoa, when they say Renaissance, they are not fucking around, are they, Regulus D? No, they are not. Anywho, I was talking to Autonomical, and I mentioned to him how Regulus is the brightest star in the constellation Leo, which I figured made your username a pretty decent Buddhist reference, in my opinion, so I've kind of always liked it. Just thought I'd throw that out there as a shout out to your own facility with, just proper literary illusion and effective ones that are appreciated, by people who know how to read words, right? Anyway, I'm going to launch my experience of this world here soon. And I think it's going to be a fun one for this character because, it was funny when I first got into the character, I tried to remove that scar from his chest, and then I remembered, oh, that's where the dragon plucked his heart out, because I did have the opportunity to play the first game for free on PlayStation Plus not too long ago, because I wanted to see what the game was like before I invested this type of money into it. If it wasn't going to be a good literary platform for some commentary, I'm not gonna be able to afford that. But I was very, very impressed with the game itself, with the literary stage and setting it provides. And I think the pawn technology is some of the best literary technology I've ever fucking seen in my life. When I saw how that worked, that I can design a pawn, give it experiences in my game world, upload it to the cloud where someone else can download it into somewhere else in the Dragon's Dogma multiverse, right? And it could go have experiences over there in another part of the multiverse, right? And then it could be retransferred through the cloud back to my egg here in my version of Dragon Dogma's multiverse, where it would have and retain the knowledge and experiences of the questing it did in the other universe. Like, artists at Capcom already invented that literary technology fucking 12 years ago, and no one ever told me about it. Because I probably would have set down everything I was doing and focused exclusively on that, right? So I guess it's a good thing no one told me about it, and I had, 7 or 8 more years. Well, I guess it's been 12 years to work on other things before I got to this. But to me, that is one of the most interesting pieces of literary technology I've ever fucking heard of, right? Just as I described it, that pawn system. I'm very impressed, and boy, I just feel lucky to be here seeing this, and really you should say experiencing it, I think, when it comes to a Renaissance, because this is some wild shit, dude. It was funny, last year some point, I made a comment that I was going to work up some content about video games, and that Dota 2 guy, username Dota 2 whatever, in our Zen made some kind of snarky comment about, he looked forward to whatever takedowns I was going to do, as if I were going to take down gamers, and not more accurately as if I were a gamer, right? Because I'm a gamer. That's like, what the fuck? Like, what did he think I was talking about? Was it just because I make fun of how people who have been playing games for the last 15 years talk on the internet? Like, gamers this and you gamers this. Those gamers do talk like idiots on Reddit. What do you think's going to happen in fucking technological change like this? That goes right for the eyes and then cuts out all your words, I think that's pretty funny. But I, of course, had a weird life path as a gamer, and it was pretty easy to, like, determine that life path, because, like, the last first person or single player game I remember playing was Metal Gear Solid 2. And then the last game I really played that was multiplayer was EverQuest Online Adventures, although I did play a little bit of Final Fantasy XI and a little bit of World of Warcraft 2 to see what those were like back when they came out. But EverQuest Online Adventures was basically my last MMO. And I could see, I mean, I already had like the first two tiles of a mosaic that made a renaissance in front of me, but I could look at Wall Street and the American economy and see that for the next like 20 years or so, Wall Street corporations were going to feed American consumers garbage and totally ruin video games. But that in 20 years, the games would probably start getting pretty fucking good as far as pieces of literature and art, right? And so I said, well, that works out good because I'm like, in my early 20s and I can just stop playing games for 20 years. And if I live long enough, I'll be able to experience the good ones instead of the shit that's about to come down the pipeline, I think that was a very accurate take looking back. But what I really noticed about that experience is the actual creative value of those art objects that I got to experience back then that really showed me what a renaissance was and was going to be like. And it, it's the same creative technologists who put this piece of literary technology, this literary hardware that I am making this video for you with in my parrot room today, is the same company that first allowed me to be a bard. Something I was so good at that I just basically never stopped, even when I turned that game off after 3 months. Right? And like I kind of observed that and was like, wow. Obviously in 3 months of EverQuest Online Adventures, I just learned more than I learned in total from the American educational system in 23 years. Right? And that told me enough. That showed me enough it told me enough to show me what a renaissance was really going to be like, that one fact, right? And so, I'll give you a little story about how the ability to experience playing a bard in a simulated universe is a game, like just as an entertaining game, actually showed me something inherent that was interesting to see, right? And so when I played EverQuest Online Adventures on the PlayStation, it was the first online RPO and MMO on console, and I was the first bard to level cap, and I was in the first 4-person group to level cap, and I think we beat everyone else by like a week or something like that, or maybe even 2. This was back in the frontier days, my friend. There was no party finder. There was no hand-holding. If you walked outside of a town at level 30, the first level 32 mob you saw was going to assassinate you. And you needed a group, and yet no one on PlayStation really knew what tanks and DPI, all this shit was for and how it worked exactly. And there weren't enough people in classes around with the right classes to form good groups anyway. And so what happened is that I belonged to a guild named Never Sleep because we played all day long, and all I did was I just took off the whole semester for all classes except for one that didn't require attendance, and I just played games all day for a semester because I was just waiting to go to Europe, back to France. I wasn't there to like actually take classes that semester. I was just waiting. And so I just could play all day. And then so I got into this perma group with 3 other cats. And there was a rogue and a wizard and a cleric and me, the bard. And what you'll notice, and if you're familiar with EverQuest, is that there is no tank in that group and no one has a taunt, right? But because I figured out how to bard tank, we were the ones of the first level cap, because I was so much better at tanking than any of the tanks that we never wiped, or we wiped 2 times, I think, in like the entire race from like 35 to 50 or 40 to 60 or whatever it was, the level cap from when we started. And we played around the clock to do it. I think, like I said, we wiped like 2 times. And because I had way more DPS than a tank, and then since I could figure out how to tank, we just mowed everything down. And we had a really talented cleric. I mean, every player was pretty talented back then. I'm not anything like a talented gamer these days, but it was a great system because what the bard had was he had 2 songs that were really important, 2 buff songs, and one buffed the mana regen of the wizard, and the other buffed like the DPS of the rogue or some shit, right? And so what we do is I would go in like the tank and make the pull, and start the fight and draw aggro, and then I would cast my mana regen song, which would boost me up even higher in the aggro table, because for whatever reason those bard songs had a lot of activity on that, had a lot of weight on the aggro table. And then once my song was going, the wizard would use the crazy amount of mana he got to nuke at as hard as he could, right up until the moment when the mob would pull off of me and attack the wizard, right? And at that moment, I would cast my melee DPS buff song, right? Which would draw yank aggro back to me, right? And at that point, the rogue would go full tilt, right? And just wail on them until the same thing happened and I switched back to the other song. And so really it was just about me and the DPSs learning to time it, so we just always hit the perfect right when the song was, refreshed, was right when I was like getting aggro or losing aggro, right? So right when the song was becoming available, I would lose aggro and then click the song and get it back. And because of that simple bardic cycle, right, we basically beat the game. We were the first ones to beat the game. It was almost like the game was designed to just open itself in front of us when we discovered that trick. And it was cool because we had actual developers. Devs would come down in their avatars and ask us what we thought of all the mechanics and where there were problems and stuff the whole way, because we were the first actual players doing it. It was pretty fun. And then I look back at a lot of my, activities in the intervening years, including and up to, my activities in Arzen, my literary activities there. And I'm like, you know what? I think that bard tanking thing was something that I just enjoyed so much I never put down again. And I got to be honest, every time I've played an MMO since then, I've always tried the bards, but I always usually end up playing a tank because I just liked that tanking so much. But the problem is I've never discovered a tank character that's half as fun as just being a bard tank. Right? Like none of the tanks I ever got to play, and I didn't play a ton of games, I didn't play games for a long time, but none of the tanks I played were ever as fun as a bard tank who didn't have taunt. And so I'm like, well, some games have got to start being a little more creative if they want to get me back into them, right? Because this is kind of cookie cutter boring compared to what I just did randomly with the first one I ever picked up. I became a bard tank and I beat the fucking game with it. Right? Oh, is that not how it's supposed to work? Did they nerf it later because of me? Maybe they did. Maybe they're like, that guy was actually a bard. It wasn't fair. Maybe that's what those devs said over at Sony. I mean, maybe they do fucking think of it like that. Looking at this shit that they put together. Oh, this is Capcom, not Sony. This actual game. But yeah. So that's how much of a gamer I am. I just took the middle years of my life off because it didn't seem to make sense to be playing games in like the main adult phase of my life. Whereas if I wanted to be a gamer, it made more sense that I did play some video games when I was a kid as a Nintendo, and I played some PlayStation 1 games, and and I played EverQuest in college, and then I quit, and then 20 years later, look, I just got lucky enough to get a normal biological condition where my cognitive ability is declining through just normal processes of biology, and it actually makes a lot more sense to play video games at 45 than I would have guessed back then. Right? I'm basically at retirement and at a good cognitive level where games make sense for my activity. And so I think I navigated that renaissance well. And I also missed 20 years or so of total Wall Street bullshit. Because when I picked up Baldur's Gate 3 and saw that I could double class a bard and a paladin, I knew the games that I'd been waiting for were finally here. Right? Anyway, I'm going to get to my game. I'm going to go learn about this piece of literature that Capcom has put in my hands. And then, maybe I'll be able to make some literary commentary with it. We'll see. But anyway, that's my character. When I'm buzzing around in the Dragon Dogma, my version of it, and my part of the multiverse, when I'm in the Dragon Dogma universe for my first playthrough, this is how I will look. Feel free to share a snapshot or whatever if you would like of your character. I did really appreciate those plus-size character forms, and I think my next playthrough will... I think I already have that one picked out, and I'm actually very excited about that. That's a very good point you made. I think that is very cool to be able to do plus-size avatars that look so cool and are so easy to do. Yeah. I don't know about exchanging pawns with just some random username on the internet, though. Doesn't matter if you're like, pretty funny when you write comments about Zen. I don't know if that necessarily... I don't know if that necessitates a pawn exchange. Right? But that is why the Sicilian Dragon's always one of the most interesting defenses to deploy. Peace.